What does it mean when a character is a foil of another? The purpose of a foil is to reveal deeper layers of a duo of characters by placing them side by side and comparing or contrasting their actions, beliefs, backgrounds, and etc. A character foil is about contrast. It's not necessarily about opposition of another character, but how they complement or highlight another character. A foil can be many different types of characters and character interactions, and is most often shown in protagonist versus antagonist relationships, though again, not exclusively. An example of a classic foil would be Batman and the Joker. Batman represents strict order, discipline, and trauma channeled into justice and a strict morality. The Joker represents absolute chaos, random violence, and trauma channeled into dark comedy, chaos, nihilism, and absurdity. When you put these two together, what can be noticed and highlighted is Batman's fragile mental restraint, and adds not only a compelling edge to Batman himself for audiences to analyze, but also creates this very compelling character dynamic and relationship. Batman and Joker's relationship to one another is something that fans have been deeply fascinated in for decades now throughout many different stories. Batman and the Joker are one of the most popular and ultimate literary foils because they are two opposite answers to the exact same question. How do you react to a senseless tragedy?
All it takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day. You had a bad day once, am I right? Oh, I know I am. I can tell. You had a bad day and everything changed. Dressing up like a flying rat doesn't hide it, it screams it. You had a bad day and it drove you as crazy as everybody else, only you won't admit it. You have to keep pretending that life makes sense, that there's some point to all this struggling. You make me wanna puke.
The character foil is honestly a great writing device to create some really interesting character interactions. By forcing characters with differing perspectives, backgrounds, and morals or etc. to interact, they externalize inner conflicts and create dynamic, engaging dialogue that the audience can really think about and engage with. In the world of the amazing digital circus, we have two characters that are foils to each other throughout the series because they too are two opposite answers to the exact same question. What do you do when you realize you are queer? One chooses to embrace, while another chooses denial. But it also goes deeper than that, and I want to jump into this because when we really dive into Jax and Zooble's relationship and how they contrast each other with their different character stories, we can reveal some truly deep and thoughtful things about their characters. Let's start with breaking down these characters and their stories and how they relate to each other. Jax's story is something that has been analyzed a lot on the channel recently, and I will break it down again a little for this video's sake, of course, but just for variety's sake, let's start with Zooble. When we first meet Zooble, there's a few things that we can pretty much tell instantly about their character. They are truly this sort of grumpy archetype of a character that Jax later states them as. They're also shown to have a pretty antagonistic relationship with Jax that seems, well, mutual. Zooble definitely gives off a sort of mean genderqueer lesbian energy right off the bat, and it's why they quickly became someone that I related to. They are, however, also very protective over the others, especially when it comes to Jax. And this is shown almost right away, as not even 3 full minutes into the pilot, Zooble is telling Jax to shut up when he matter-of-factly states Pomni can't leave the circus. Where Jax instantly greets Pomni with this unsympathetic view and this shit-eating grin, Zooble greets Pomni with a bit more gentleness. I think it's really worth noting that one of the things that Zooble says here is,
"But yeah, he's right. Welcome to your new home. And your new body."
Zooble was the last one to arrive before Pomni, and therefore is sympathetic to the feelings that she's going through. And I think, of course, Zooble does note also, "Welcome to your new body," because this new body was something they really struggled and still struggle with. And that was apparent by episode 3 when Zooble has their one-on-one conversation with Kane. We learn more about Zooble in episode 3 with their one-on-one therapy session with Kane. Zooble says right off the bat, and please note how communicative and self-aware they are here.
"I've already told you what my problem is. You just never remember because Never mind.
And I think what they were going to say here was something along the lines of, you just never remember because you are a binary entity trying to understand non-binary concepts. The fact is that AI like Kane cannot truly understand the nuance required to understand these concepts in a human sense because it lacks lived experience, emotions, and consciousness that humans have. I actually think that this character interaction is something very interesting that Gooseworks explored. The idea of a non-binary or genderqueer mind trying to get something like an artificial intelligence, something so binary, to understand them. But again, let me focus, because this is about Jax and Zooble. Zooble does still try to tell Cain again, tries to get him to understand them. Zooble expresses that they truly hate their body, that they hate all the removable pieces. They say that they just want to find something that feels good to them. And the way that their character acting is in this scene, and with the more we get and learn about Zooble, I think that this is a feeling that they had long before they came into the circus. It's about this body, the one with the removable pieces, of course, but it's also truly deeper than that. Something I find really interesting about Zooble and how they relate to the non-binary experience has to do with their removable pieces. Not all non-binary and gender non-conforming folk have the same experiences, of course. I want to make that clear. But one experience I have heard of before, and also actually feel myself, is some non-binary and genderqueer trans folks would love a body that had removable parts so they could sort of pick and choose the parts to. Like, an experience I've heard from some non-binary folk born with AFAB chests is that they wish they could almost take their chest off like a shirt, if that makes sense. Like, they wish they could pick and choose when they present their chests. To Cain, Zooble's issues with their removable parts has been solved, as he provides a seemingly endless reserve of parts for Zooble to pick and choose from as they please. And this is truly a trait unlike all the others, right? Like Cain does not give the others this level of customization with themselves. Cain literally can't understand how this special treatment doesn't solve all of Zooble's issues. And it doesn't solve their problems because the dysphoria Zooble is feeling truly goes deeper than Cain can truly understand. Zooble's feelings really coincide with the ideas of gender dysphoria, and a general definition for gender dysphoria is the psychological distress a person experiences because their gender identity and or their internal sense of their gender does not match with what they were assigned. Zooble hates this body that they were assigned against their will, and Cain can give them an endless supply of parts, but even those are still sort of assigned to them by Cain. It will not change these feelings that Zooble is dealing with. Another thing we learn about Zooble is they have this sort of bartender personality, and kind of fall into this sort of character archetype as well. A bartender in fiction is a classic character archetype known for being a perceptive, charismatic confidant who serves as a social anchor. They often end up being a pseudo-therapist for others, and we literally see that happen in episode 3 when the therapy sessions turns into one for Cain instead of Zooble. We don't get much more about Zooble and how they're feeling internally about themselves again until episode 7, when they have a short conversation with Jax. Jax says something to Zooble that is arguably like one of the meanest things you could say to them.
Aren't you supposed to be miserable about your ability to choose your own body or something?
And it's clear that of course Jax wants to hurt or piss off Zooble here to get them to go away. But instead of leaving, Zooble does something that I find so inspiring, honestly. They say that their perspective has started to change, that maybe the ability to change is just fine, and that there is value in not needing to commit to one thing all the time. They have accepted themselves, and they outright tell Jax that here. Knowing what we now know for sure about Jax, it's hard for me to not consider that Zooble was being their perceptive selves here, and picking up on the fact that all of Jax's behavior comes from a place of self-hatred. I think as much as they hate Jax, they are able to clock that Jax may also have this disconnect with their identity, and that's why they're so outright mean. I also want to briefly discuss the maid Jax scene, as this is another really interesting interaction between Jax, Zooble, and Gangle. Gangle does not say much in this interaction, but there's of course this interaction between Jax and Zooble. And Zooble's expression is something of note here to me. They're acknowledging that they've never seen Jax this upset about something before, and the way they said it, this tone they use, it's not a judgmental one, it's an inquisitive one. A moment of them going, huh, someone who's secure in their identity wouldn't normally react with such embarrassment. Interesting. I think this was kind of the moment that they clocked that Jax's behavior came from somewhere. It didn't really soften their view of Jax or their actions, of course, but I think it led to Zooble understanding Jax more, and therefore made them able to feel for Jax when they meet their demise, as that could have been Zooble's fate. Just something interesting to think about with that scene. Zooble makes it clear that they are okay with themselves, and they have a support system for any times that they may not be okay with themselves, and implies to Jax that they could have that too if he just opened up. So Zooble chooses acceptance and peace over denial and inner turmoil. In their conversation with Gangle in episode 6, which we will be discussing more, they talk about the concept of choosing to love yourself.
You have to choose to love yourself, even if it doesn't make sense. It's not natural, it's intentional.
This is something Zooble has learned over their life and also their time in the circus. That choosing to love yourself, all parts of yourself, even the parts you find undesirable, has immense value, and that choice has to be a conscious one made for yourself. Now, let's compare their story to Jax's story. The one that chose denial, that chose to take their pain and own inner turmoil out on others and channeled it into being an outright abuser. We saw how Jax treated Gangle, and that was outright abusive. We're actually going to compare and contrast Jax and Zooble's relationship to Gangle as well as a way to analyze their characters. But first, let's do a quick breakdown of Jax again, just for brevity's sake. We know that Jax came from an abusive home. We obviously do not know that for sure right away until the final episode, but a known saying is hurt people hurt people. And I think the way that Jax was also very adverse to telling anyone any details about him made most viewers expect Jax to have a pretty tragic life back in the real world before it was outright confirmed in the finale. Jax becomes a outright rude bully, it seems, right after confessing some things to Ribbit. And Jax really lets this horribly mean part of themselves out truly after Ribbit abstracts, as Jax becomes outright condescending to Kaufmo, yells at Ragatha to never mention Ribbit's name ever again, and then gives Gangle her name when she enters just to be a bully. And like, look at Kaufmo and Ragatha's expressions here. They're looking at Jax here as if to say, what's wrong with you? Why are you being so mean all of a sudden? They're hurt and confused that Jax is acting this way. Instead of embracing the secret within with the help of friends, instead of consciously choosing love, Jax decides to shut everyone out by pushing them away with this antagonistic behavior. Jax also has a throwaway line or two that implies he also hates his cartoon body.
Look, I know what it's like. One day you're somebody in the real world doing important things, and then the next you're just a weird little cartoon jester. God, you look stupid. You're not looking too good. You gonna cry? Looking like this?
But again, the dysphoria truly goes deeper than that. It came with Jax into the circus. Jax had gender dysphoria that followed him into the circus, just like Zooble. And instead of dealing with the dysphoria changed form, Jax represses their true selves, bullies others to externalize their own pain, and shuts them out to the point of making them abstract like Ribbit. And eventually all the denial and self-hatred catches up with Jax and they abstract too. The guilt and shame and the denial all catches up with Jax and brings an end to the life they made in the circus. And while Zooble's journey is much more subtle, I think Zooble's whole story of coming to accept themselves is truly meant to be a device to compare and contrast their actions with Jax and Jax's fate. Now, let's jump into Jax, Zooble, and Gangle.
The girls are fighting! No!
Because I think this is another really great point of compare and contrast for these characters, because the way they both treat Gangle, in my opinion, shows us a lot about how these characters love and interact with the people that they care about. Let's start with Jax's relationship to Gangle. He's an outright antagonistic bully, and the way Jax treats Gangle is something that Gangle really struggles with throughout the series. It is subtle in the start of the show, but it's clear that there's a friendship? Something going on between Gangle and Jax, even if it's a toxic and abusive one. Jax calls Gangle names, physically antagonizes and hurts them, and genuinely makes Gangle fear what they will do next to her. I again bring up the phrase, hurt people hurt people. After the finale, we now know that Jax came from an abusive home. To Jax, love was volatile and harsh. It's pretty clear that Jax learned this toxic and abusive behavior from a toxic and abusive home life. There's this thing about nature and nurture, right? Nature refers to your biological and genetic makeup. That's like your inherited traits, DNA, and etc. Stuff about you that's biological. While nurture encompasses your environmental influences, things like your upbringing, life experiences, culture, and different social relationships. And the theory is that both of these concepts interact to shape human development and behavior. Jax's nurture was full of toxicity, verbal abuse, hostility. Jax was taught to act this way to people he cares about by their parents because that's how their parents treated them, so Therefore, that must be love, right? That's the view that Jax has here. And obviously, this fact does not make Jax's actions of outright abuse towards Gangle and the others excusable or okay. No information we get could change the fact that Jax was so abusive to Gangle that she feared for her own safety regularly.
Do you think Jax is gonna be mad that I didn't team up with him?
I wouldn't worry about him right now. It's all just a game in the end.
It's Jax, though. He probably wants revenge, and he's gonna make it painful.
Hey.
And frankly, nothing can really make it okay. But it does open our eyes as viewers and fans to a really deep and complex character dynamic. There's a reason why Gangle has a lot of complex feelings when Jax meets their demise, and it's because they are a victim of Jax. It's hard for Gangle not to possibly feel some sort of relief knowing her bully is gone, but it's also so easy to feel guilt for feeling that way in the first place. It also means the loss of one of their already small-knit group, and all of these compounding feelings is a lot for anyone to handle. But now, let's compare Gangle and Jax's relationship to Gangle and Zooble's relationship, where Jax is abusive outright. Zooble is a positive force in Gangle's life. We really start to see more of their relationship bloom in episode 4. While the plastic mask ends up not being a good fit for Gangle, Zooble does offer her that mask from a good place. They wanted to provide Gangle with a less fragile option for a mask, with her happy mask normally being broken all the time against her will due to its fragility. Zooble also checks in with Gangle when she self-isolates after the Spudsies adventure. Gangle was feeling a lot of shame and guilt here, and it's because the nice gesture that Zooble gave her didn't work for her and she's believing she messed everything up. Zooble receives these feelings with grace and greets them with kindness. They reassure Gangle that they still really like talking to them, despite what Gangle's own self-depreciating words are saying. They also tell them that it's okay that the mask didn't work, and just because that one didn't work doesn't mean something won't work well for her in the future. And Gangle responds with more self-depreciating talk. It's tragic, saying that she doesn't deserve a friend like Zooble. And Zooble still greets it with grace, saying, well, you've got one, and gets Gangle to rejoin the group thanks to all this kindness and intuition. Zooble goes on to become even more protective over Gangle in the following episodes, doing things like trying to keep Jax quiet about the anime adventure so Gangle can have her fun. Even in the bartending scene in episode 5, they're being very encouraging of Gangle's art, and Zooble even tells her that they would be happy to spend time making art together if that's something that she would like. They're happy to make this space for Gangle in their life. Episode 6 has a really interesting interaction with Zooble, Gangle, and Jax, where Jax tries to force Gangle onto a team with them. When Gangle says they're actually going to be on a team with Zooble, Jax literally takes her happy mask, this representation of happiness for Gangle, and literally holds it over her head. Gangle struggles to get her mask back, only for Zooble to come and yank the happy mask right out of Jax's hands while they weren't looking. And I think this whole interaction is so symbolic of the way that these characters show love and care for others. I think this symbolism really doubles down when Gangle hands off her happy mask for Zooble to keep safe. Gangle is literally and figuratively trusting Zooble with a very important and fragile part of herself. They have a really cute and clear conversation here that Gangle really wants to be able to have fun with this adventure and just needs help safeguarding this part of herself so that she can enjoy it to its full potential. And Zooble asks literally no questions, keeping it safe for her. This episode shows a lot of little moments of Zooble and Gangle together. Little things from Zooble looking for their ideal weapon to big things like this talk they have about Jax and choosing to love yourself. Gangle is expressing fear at what Jax may do to her after their adventure is over, and Zooble sits beside her and tells Gangle that she does not deserve to be treated this way, like Jax's punching bag. But Gangle does express that sometimes, because of their circumstances in the circus and the way that Jax treats her, it's hard to not see herself as a plaything. Jax never treats Gangle with any humanity, and I think it really does something to Gangle and her psyche. Gangle outright says the words, "How do you like something about yourself that makes you worse than everyone else?" And I think, with the avatar gimmicks as Zooble puts it, this is something that Zooble deeply understands. Zooble responds to this very difficult question with simply saying, because it exists. We all have parts we like about ourselves and things we dislike about ourselves. You have to choose to love yourself, including the parts that you think are undesirable to others. By the end of the story, they have done this, and they are much more accepting of themselves and their situation and their body. It's truly by the beach episode, and when they have that talk of self-acceptance with Jax, that I think this truly becomes clear. Zooble also isn't afraid to be vulnerable and cry in front of Gangle, like we see in episode 8 when Zooble breaks down a bit when they're trying to accept that they can't leave the circus. And this is something Jax would never do. Literally, where Zooble cried and seeked for comfort in a hug from Gangle, Jax attempts to walk away to self-isolate. The way these characters interact with the circus and their relationships within the circus is so truly fascinating because of the ways they are similar but also definitely contrast each other. Both Jax and Zooble have these themes of gender dysphoria and self-acceptance, which are like these very queer concepts, right? While one expresses their feelings outright more to the others, using they-them pronouns and outright talking about their dysphoria with people, that's the whole point. Because one chooses to be open and vulnerable with their difficult feelings, opening up to others and choosing acceptance, while the other, Jax, completely shuts the difficult feelings and people that care for them out. We're then only left to see that they struggle in the first place with these difficult feelings after their demise, when it's too late to do anything about it. Zooble's story as a character involves themes of self-acceptance, vulnerability, and a caring nature, while Jax's story contrasts these ideas with self-rejection, impenetrability, and outright callousness. By contrasting the one in denial and the one that accepts their queerness, the story demonstrates that the true belonging and peace cannot be bought through assimilation and shut down into what you believe you should be. It must instead be forged through the painful work of self-acceptance. These characters have somewhat similar emotional arcs and inner conflicts, and the way they choose to deal with them is some of the most compelling stuff the amazing digital circus has to offer. With that, there's all my thoughts for this character foil analysis. Was there anything to compare and contrast that I missed? Please share it with me down below in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thanks so much for watching as always, especially of course to my returning viewers. There is a lot more of you guys now, and I'm so happy to have you. Like, welcome. Please feel free to have all sorts of fandom discussion in the comments, or even tell me about stuff you'd like to see from me. Happy to hear that too. Like, should I jump into some Gameaverse and Knights of Guinevere theories now that the digital circus is over? I still do have stuff that I can talk about with digital circus as well. Let me know what you think down below. You can also check out my print shop for some fun new digital circus prints and stickers, including this fun new Do It For Her Trans Femme Jax one. Check out pedalandfang.shopify.com or click on the link in the description below to check those out. Please, of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and even hype the video if you feel up for it. And with that, that's everything. Thanks again so much for watching, and as always, my freaks and geeks, take care of yourself.